I understand you have big news for us.
When it comes to what's happening in Gaza, there's videos and pictures of what's happening to children that you just can't unsee.
Here to talk to us about the importance of releasing the Epstein files is an Epstein survivor. Anushka DeGiorgio joins us now. And Anushka, I really want to thank you for your courage.
I don't know if you're allowed to talk about it, but in all those interactions over the 10 years, did you ever see Trump at any of these parties? Now joining us, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Congresswoman from Georgia's 14th Congressional District. Representative Greene, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on tonight.
No problem. I understand you have big news for us. There is something you are considering introducing tomorrow. What is that?
Well, actually, I've already introduced them. This week here in Congress, we're doing the National Defense Authorization Act, which is our annual funding for our military. And our military budget should be very focused on our country, on our military, and strictly for defense purposes. However, once again, there is funding for foreign countries, foreign causes, foreign aid, and foreign defense of foreign nations. And so I've introduced multiple amendments to strip that funding out, specifically to defund $600 million for Ukraine. So I've got one amendment to do that. And then I have a second amendment to take out any funding because I found out that one of my colleagues is trying to add more money in for Ukraine. I have two amendments that strip funding from Israel. This would be $500 million. Israel already receives $3.8 billion annually from the United States government. I'm a big believer in defunding all foreign aid and all foreign funding for all foreign countries. So I've introduced two amendments, one to get the $500 million out of the NDAA. The $3.8 billion goes in the state and foreign ops appropriations bill, so that's separately. And I had done amendments for that. And then I have another amendment that takes out another $105 million. This one is $55 million for Israel's counter-drone program and another $70 million for anti-tunnel cooperation. So it's just important. We're $37 trillion in debt. We shouldn't be funding foreign countries, basically because America's broke, and we really need to get focused on our own country and our own people's problems.
Okay, so I want to take it one by one. I want to get clarity on all this, and then we'll get into the content and substance of it. So first off, the $500 million that you introduced an amendment to take out of the NDAA, is that the one that recently passed overwhelmingly in the House?
Yes, that's the one that overwhelmingly passed. It was before Congress went on recess, and only 6 members of Congress voted for it, yes.
And so that they claim is for defensive purposes, whatever that means, and about 60 million of billion of it or so, million of it goes to around 66 maybe to Iron Dome, and the rest is for, I don't know if you know, vague defensive purposes.
Well, just to clarify for your listeners, the US already provides nuclear-armed Israel with $3.8 billion annually in foreign aid. In 2024, in the security supplemental, we gave $8.7 billion to Israel. During the recent 12-day war with Iran in June, the US used 15 to 20% of our terminal high altitude area defense missile stockpile defending Israel. That cost the United States somewhere over $800 million. Wow. The $500 million that I'm introducing an amendment to take out is authorized in the NDAA for this program that funds Israel's missile defense systems, Iron Dome, David Sling, and the Arrow system. But it's important to note that since 2006, we've spent over $15 billion supporting these Israeli missile defense systems. Here's what is something important to understand. While we're 37 trillion in debt, Israel is less than 400 billion in debt. And they're doing so well with their economy, they're able to provide state-funded healthcare for Israeli citizens. They're able to provide state-funded college. My argument is it's not anti-Semitic to say that America should keep our money and invest our own hard-earned tax dollars in our own interest, especially for a country like Israel that is nuclear armed and that is doing so well economically, they're able to provide state-funded healthcare in college. I don't think that's a country that needs our assistance, especially how they've shown the entire world that they're very capable of annihilating and wiping out their enemies. So that's really my argument there with Israel.
Right.
And primarily my argument is we've got so many problems here at home. I really want to see the United States Congress focus on the American people.
So one more quick point of clarification. And the Second Amendment is to take out the entire 3.8 billion in funding?
Well, the 3.8 billion is not in the NDAA. That's in a separate appropriations bill. So I wasn't able to do that one here.
Right.
Oh, so you couldn't do that here. So the two amendments are for the 500 million and the 125 million.
And just to be clear, the 3.8 billion that we provide Israel every single year is part of legislation that passed under the Obama administration, a 10-year program, which is set to expire in 2026. So that fight is coming up because I'm sure Israel is going to expect our Congress to re-up and potentially increase the amount of money they can expect from American taxpayers on a yearly basis. So, I think what you're doing here is so important, Congresswoman Greene. So please, thank you, because I know that you now have a target on your back, and I'm sure you're being called all sorts of ridiculous names because you want to, prioritize the American people and, do something about our debt. What's really interesting, though, is when it comes to the military aid that's provided to Ukraine, President Donald Trump has very subtly, but I actually think this is a smart idea, has very subtly kind of started to shift the financial burden a little more over to Europe. So the American taxpayer isn't as responsible for essentially helping Ukraine in their defense. In the case of Israel, though, what's really interesting is on top of that 3.8 billion that they receive every single year, you have presidents, and Biden certainly did this literally over 100 times during his administration. He just went, he bypassed Congress altogether to provide Israel with tens of billions of dollars in additional military support and military funding. And Trump has done similar things during the short stint he's had in his second term. And I want to kind of understand, what have you as a congresswoman experienced kind of like behind the scenes? Like, what is it about Israel in particular that gets our lawmakers to just be unwavering in their support and their willingness to shell out endless amounts of money to that country?
I think that's a great question, and it's really difficult to understand. So I don't go on the AIPAC trips. I've never been on them. I don't receive their funding, and I have a sign on my office door, literally, that reminds people, if you're coming in my office, it reminds them, if you're coming in for a foreign country, you've got to be registered under FARA. And I think that's extremely important. I don't understand it, Anna, because I serve in the United States House of Representatives, and I believe my job title as a representative is for my district, which is the American people. And as a whole, the body of Congress, we represent the American people and our country and our government and our causes, and we're supposed to work towards solving our problems. However, there is no country all over the world that gets the attention, the funding, the dedication, the amount of votes, legislation, resolutions other than Israel. As a matter of fact, we've voted, I think it's over 21 to 23 resolutions denouncing anti-Semitism, denouncing anything happening towards Jewish people since I've been a member of Congress, January of 2021. And I've never seen resolutions for any other cause like that in that number. As well as when it comes to Israel, we have hate crimes, which is incredibly important. We need hate crimes. People of all backgrounds, races, no matter what their identity is, they should be protected. However, in our NDAA, there's a portion there where they're introducing more penalties for anti-Semitism when it comes to college campuses and protesting. I'm completely against that. So I'm not sure how to answer your question of why. Part of it is there's Christians in America that really believe that verse in Genesis, bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. And they believe that applies today to the secular government of Israel. I personally don't believe that, and I'm a Christian. And I believe that's basically a pretty big stumbling stone. If you're a Christian, you truly believe that Jesus died on a cross and rose 3 days later and ascended into heaven. And we have very deep convictions on what that meant. That meant that he died for all of our sins to be forgiven. We don't believe in that verse in Genesis, meaning that covers up everything that Jesus did. But I think that holds a lot of power over many of my colleagues and a certain percentage of Americans today. But I think the separation of understanding that being against what the secular government, nuclear armed government of Israel is doing, it doesn't make you an anti-Semitic person. It doesn't make you against Jewish people. It just means that, and for me, it means that I believe our problems are so big in America and our debt is so massive that I'm sorry to the rest of the world, no offense to anyone, but I think we just really got to focus at home.
You know, my follow-up to you is more philosophical than policy related, because I don't think I'm mistaken in noticing a change in you, to be quite frank, and it's a change that I personally like. There's a certain seriousness and maturity in the way that you deliver what your objectives are and how you genuinely want to serve what's in the best interests of your constituents and the people of this country. Do you feel that, the way that this genocide in Gaza has developed has kind of given you a different perspective on geopolitics?
Well, I think there's two parts to that question, and I appreciate your observation. In the beginning, the media was pretty rough on me, right? So it was hard for a lot of people to really understand who I am as a person. And when I ran for Congress in 2020, what a lot of people may not know is I actually ran criticizing the Republican Party. I had a lot of criticism of Republicans. And I said that many times on my campaign trail, so my district knows it full well. That is no surprise to them. I think the Republican Party fails in many ways. And I'm open about that. Now, when it comes to what's happening in Gaza, there's videos and pictures of what's happening to children that you just can't unsee. And anyone that has a heart and compassion for children and innocent people, I don't know how anyone can turn a blind eye to that. But I've also stated that October 7th was horrific, and I stand by those statements. I think both things are really bad. And then I talked to Christian pastors in Gaza, and they told me that the starvation of children is real. This is not war propaganda. This is not made up. And so it was taking some investigation and talking to people and looking deeply into actual evidence I'm seeing with videos and pictures. And I just can't unsee it. I think it's terrible, and that war, it really truly needs to end. There's a certain authenticity in the way you're reacting to it that I really value, because you look at so many politicians, and even in the face of mass atrocities, they're just robots. And so I really appreciate the fact that you've been speaking out against what's happening in Gaza. I'm sure that it has attracted all sorts of terrible attention toward you, but please keep doing what you're doing, because it's necessary. And I think that what's currently happening, because we're paying for it, we're aiding and abetting it. It's a stain on our country, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, so I just want to follow up on that real quick. So Representative Greene, your reaction that Anna just described, a human reaction to seeing children being killed right in front of our eyes, and not a little bit, like tens of thousands of children, right, is a normal human reaction. But yet it is not the reaction that an overwhelming majority of your colleagues are feeling, apparently. So that, what did you guys get? 6 votes last time for similar legislation, right? And so Now, the media tells us that when you look at why, that it's because Israel is apparently some special magical place and that we owe them. I don't know why we owe them, but we're told all the time we owe them, right? And so I don't know that America ever did anything wrong to Israel. All America's ever done is support Israel over and over and over and over again. And even in the middle of a genocide, but still apparently we owe them. And it's offensive to suggest that we don't owe them. But yet again, the overwhelming majority of our colleagues say, no, we do owe Israel, and you are not allowed to criticize, you're not allowed to question their money. And so you've gotten attacked, and Ro Khanna's gotten attacked, Tom Massey, etc. So real quick, I wanna run down the possibilities. Media says money has nothing to do with it, though a lot of Americans think money has a lot to do with it. That AIPAC is given to 65% of Congress. The different Israel PAC supporting Israel have given to 90% of the members of Congress. So do you believe money is a factor in your colleagues' votes on this issue?
I completely believe money's a factor. I watch it every single day here in Congress. The people that I work with, who they're funded by, affects their votes. Many of the doctors caucus during COVID, the doctors, many of them I served with on the COVID committee, they're very, very funded by Big Pharma. And they wouldn't talk about the COVID vaccines. And that was so disturbing to me. I think that's a very important topic and investigation that needs to happen. And I'm pursuing it right now as we speak. Many of the members that I serve with that are highly funded by the military industrial complex, they're going to make sure that those government contracts and all of that gets funded. They believe in a war economy, and they will flat out tell us that they'll say, Marjorie, you have thousands of jobs in your district that rely on these government contracts. Well, you want to know something? I'm not very interested in funding an economy that's based on killing people, especially innocent people and children.
I love it.
And but yes, I do believe that AIPAC funding is very serious. I believe AIPAC needs to register under FARA. I've openly demanded that, and if we had a Department of Justice that was doing its job, they would be investigating AIPAC, because I don't know of any other foreign country that literally takes our members of Congress on a trip to their own country, takes along with them influencers from all different backgrounds, news people, and spends a lot of money, all expenses paid, with everybody from the prime minister to different members of the government, and taking them on all types of sightseeing, religious places of worship, dinners, and all types of excursions. I don't know any other country that does that other than Israel. And I do think that it's powerful. It has an impact. And my position is, I don't hate Israel. I don't hate the people there. Oh my goodness, I wish them all well. I wish people all over the world well. But my position is, we are in trouble at home. We're in big trouble, and our debt is serious. And the fact that my children's generation, who are in their 20s, everyone they know can't afford rent, their credit cards are maxed out, the cost of living is too expensive, and insurance is a scam, and our healthcare industry is a disaster. And this is all going to lead to somewhere. And I'm just unapologetically fed up with it all.
Okay, so I know you got to run to votes. I'd love to talk more about Ukraine, more about other issues. But one last question about this. How much of a factor do you think it is that members of Congress know that if they oppose Israeli funding, that mainstream media will come down on them like a ton of bricks? That they'll be accused of being anti-Semites, that their career will be threatened, etc.
Oh yeah, big time. It's ridiculous. So you've got everybody from Mark Levine to Ben Shapiro to Laura Loomer. You've got the establishment media will call you an anti-Semite. Newspapers, you'll get phone calls from all kinds of people, asking, what's the matter with you? Yeah, the pressure is real. But I think the American people see through it, and the tide is rapidly changing. And I tell you, one of the most delightful experiences I've had since I've been in Washington, and it reminds me of my years before I ever became a member of Congress, is that I'm finding common ground with people on the left and the right that really want to focus in on America. And I think that's the best thing that can happen. And that's why I'm delighted to have conversations with the two of you. And I look forward to finding more common ground, because I think that could be the best thing that could happen for all of us.
100%. We still have so many things we disagree on, but more and more these days, it's becoming less about left versus right than it is about the American people versus the elites and the establishment.
Absolutely.
Because they do not serve our interest at all, and everyone is tired of it. So Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene from Georgia, we appreciate you coming on the Young Turks.
Thank you. We've been covering the Epstein files and what appears to be a cover-up of the Epstein files by the Trump administration. But although much has been made about the Epstein files, one of the things that's really, really important to keep in mind is that there are real people out there, survivors of the abuse that was carried out by Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. And here to talk to us about the importance of releasing the Epstein files is an Epstein survivor. Anushka DeGiorgio joins us now. And Anushka, I really want to thank you for your courage in, being willing to come out and be public about what you've gone through and how important you find it to release the Epstein files, because I know it's not easy.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for acknowledging that. And it was a decision that was made after much consideration, and I really had to weigh what, the cost of coming out publicly, which is great cost really to my own mental health and also to that of my family, against what this really meant, not only to the other survivors, but on a bigger scale to survivors in general and to people being incentivized to come forward. Because at this point, there's really no incentive for any survivor of this type of abuse, especially at the hands of such high-end situation. There's no incentive for them to come forward, and every incentive for them to remain silenced.
Absolutely, I agree with you on that. And so it does take a tremendous amount of courage. And let me just kind of start at the beginning. I don't really want to get into the details of the abuse itself. I kind of want to understand, how old were you when you were approached and groomed? I want to know how they basically sought you out, basically.
Right. Yeah. So I was around 16 when I met Ghislaine Maxwell through some mutual friends. Sort of apparently, it seemed randomly that we had met, and it was immediately apparent that she was this incredible, older woman who was very charismatic, very sophisticated, and so I was really excited to meet her, and she seemed so interested in me. And as a 16, 17-year-old, you want to feel special, you want to feel important, you want to feel seen, heard, recognized, validated, right? So at that point, she took an interest in me, said she'd love to meet with me. We happened to have I was ready to go to Oxford University, and I had a place waiting for me, contingent on my grades. So we arranged to meet up in London for tea after meeting in Paris. And then after that, she reached out to me, invited me over, and then the grooming began, or the grooming continued, because really the grooming by perpetrators of this kind is right from the onset. And it's subliminal, and it's covert, and it's insidious. So it's these little tiny reinforcing of how important you are to them and how special you are and what kind of special relationship you can have with this person.
And I believe you were a model at the time, right?
I had done some modeling. I mean, I was living with my mother because I was 16 years old, so I was in school.
So how did she reach out to you? What was the reason for her to reach out to you and show interest in you?
Well, because we'd been introduced by mutual friends, there was already a connection, and I already felt a level of safety because A, she was a woman.
Of course.
B, she was closer to the age of my mother or my parents than any of my other contemporaries. So I also had this deference, right, of thinking, oh, I have to respect this person. And really, it was just, she was so interested. She was like, tell me about you. You're so amazing. I really want to learn more about you. Wow, you're going to Oxford. I went to Oxford. Finding points of connection. And that's where it sort of began. And then the invitation to come and spend time with her, I felt very flattered. I felt, oh my goodness, she's choosing me and she knows all these important people. And so then when I had tea with her, this reinforcement continued. And she mentioned very casually about her boyfriend, Jeffrey, who I then realized, or subsequently have realized was Jeffrey. And about how he's a philanthropist, he really loves to just help people. And and I'll meet him at some point.
Interesting. Did you want to?
Yeah, so The government ridiculously claims that there are no clients at all, that it was just Epstein and Maxwell. They say they will not prosecute anyone. They literally put out a statement saying no prosecutions at all. So were there actual clients outside of Maxwell and Epstein?
So this is something that I'm really happy to clarify because, first of all, I was involved and perpetrated upon by them for over 10 years. So I had a lot of experience, and mine was quite close to the beginning of their romantic relationship. So I was exposed for many years to a lot of what was going on. What's happening in the media and where the confusion comes in is they talk about a client list. So that kind of infers or insinuates that the whole setup was designed to be like a pedophile ring with clients so that they could blackmail them, or that was the goal.
Right.
That was not the goal. The goal, this whole system was set up for Jeffrey, for young girls to be provided to Jeffrey. And Ghislaine was the one who was setting that whole thing up. And often it was her idea because she so wanted to please Jeffrey that she was going out and finding these girls. Now, that doesn't mean that as a byproduct, and as the girls aged out, they weren't then passed off to other perhaps significant friends or business connections of both Jeffrey and Ghislaine.
So were there other men?
There were other men, yes. That wasn't the main setup. So the idea of a client list is not actually a physical thing where somewhere we're gonna find this list and it's sort of, you unroll the scroll and it goes all the way down to the floor. There are a few people. I think the main thing to think about here is not so much a client list, although yes, we would love for those men to be held accountable, but it's more the people who enabled this. And this is like, if you look at following the money, because there's a bunch of money out there.
Right.
Okay, there's a bunch of people who facilitated this. Look at the people who were closest to Jeffrey, closest to Ghislaine, the people who enabled this, not the lower, sort of the staff on a lower level, because really you can see them as kind of being victimized also by fear, by intimidation. But look at the people who helped him run his operation, and then look for where his money went.
Right, but none of those men have been prosecuted. Has the government ever given you a reason why none of them have ever been prosecuted?
No, we've had a few excuses and sort of dismissive kind of explanations that really don't explain anything. And many of the other women with whom I'm in touch are very keen to see these other people held accountable. And every time we meet, like we just had a private meeting with Congress, with Speaker Johnson and lots of other congressmen. And it appeared as though they were receiving this information for the first time, which is so frustrating for us because we have told law enforcement, we have told FBI, we have testified in court. We've been in so many situations where we're like, here's the information. Brad Edwards and Brittany Henderson of the crime victim law firm, he started this whole thing, He's been working on this for years and years. He's been saying, here you go, here you go. And now at that meeting with Congress, which was a private meeting, they said, please hold us accountable. We want to help you get this thing done. Can you please give us a roadmap? And Brad Edwards and Brittany Henderson said, we absolutely will do that. We will be in touch with you. We will show you where to look.
So who said hold us accountable? Members of Congress?
Yes.
Really? Which members of Congress? Are we talking about like Thomas Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the usual suspects who seem to actually care about this issue?
Yes.
Okay, okay, that's good to know. Now, I am very curious what the properties were like. Now, there's been some reporting, the New York Times just republished some details about one of Epstein's properties in Manhattan. And what really stands out to me are the cameras. And so, did you notice the documentation of these crimes happening? Were there cameras in the rooms? Like, were Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein essentially recording proof of what was going on in these rooms?
I believe so, and I believe there's evidence that to support that. It wasn't something that I was aware of, and you have to remember, I'm 48 now.
Right.
So when this was happening, between 16 and then right up to when I was almost 30, especially in the early days, this was not a thing that I didn't know about cameras or hidden cameras. I also, when you're in a situation where you feel, where you've already been groomed, where you've already been victimized, the only thing you're thinking about is how do I keep myself safe in this moment and how do I get through this?
Right,
you know?
Right. So at what point did you realize that you were in danger, and what kind of tactics did Epstein and Maxwell use to essentially keep a survivor like you quiet as this abuse was going on?
So I think there was sort of very obvious ways, and I think this is part of the grooming thing, which is right from day one. There's this assertion of constantly reinforcing that we are very powerful people, we're very important people. Look how the staff around us are so deferential to us. Look how they're frightened of us. And in truth, the staff were far more frightened of Ghislaine than they were of Jeffrey, because she could be this very charming, elegant woman who was soft-spoken, and then she would turn around if there were not enough blueberries in, Jeffrey's muffin. God help that poor, member of staff. And so as a young girl, and I'm talking about like an 85-pound 17-year-old, I'm watching this, and this is how we navigate socially, right? This is how we learn as children. We watch and we're like, what is the dynamic? What is safe? So there were these little sort of micro signals all the time, but then there were the more significant and direct threats where, for example, Jeffrey met with a significant person in Palm Beach with me, and I'm not gonna get myself sued by saying who it is, but they're having a conversation about somebody getting away with something, right?
Interesting.
And I'm sitting there taking it in, being like, okay, and then directed at me, Jeffrey's like, you see, Anushka, if you know the right people and you have enough money, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's haunting.
Right.
So I want to get into your interactions with the government in a second, but so a lot of the victims obviously don't say the names of the people that are involved because they're worried about the lawsuits and all the different forms of intimidation. But has the government asked you what their names are, and have you ever seen them take any action in regards to those names? And I don't even know if they asked you.
I mean, I can tell you what I've personally communicated, to the government within testifying at the trial, etc. I've seen a lot of notes be taken. I haven't seen specific action regarding prosecuting anyone else. I also have a deeper understanding now of how the legal system works and how it has to work, and the fact that you can't prosecute somebody who's involved in a case until the former prosecution that's connected is completely done and dusted, right? So when Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested, a lot of people are like, why are all the other people not being arrested? And you can't just go around arresting people who are all connected because the cases affect each other, right?
I don't know about that. So maybe that's an excuse they gave you, but I think you could arrest co-conspirators together all the time.
And prosecute them simultaneously.
Yeah, so, but okay, so let's talk about the first time they reached out to you, right? Because they halfway prosecuted Epstein back in 2008. At that point, people begin to find out that this started to happen. Did they approach you at that point, earlier or later than that?
No, they didn't approach me at all. I was never approached, and I never came forward until I reached out to Brad Edwards, because I mean, as a survivor of this, I was always looking. I would check the internet. I would look things up and say, is anything happening? What's this person doing? Because these people, I felt threatened by these people, so I wanted to know what was going on. And I discovered a civil case that was being initiated by Virginia Giuffre Roberts, and it was being handled by Brad Edwards. So I reached out to Brad Edwards and I said, listen, I don't want to bring my own case forth at the moment because the fear was really too much for me, especially because I had a young baby at the time. But I would like to be helpful because I have information and I would like to help Virginia.
And around what time is that? What year?
So that was around 10 years ago.
So 2015 or so.
2014, probably.
Yeah. So at what point do you talk to the government?
So I didn't talk to the government until after Epstein died. And I say
wow.
and I say died, right?
Right.
Because I think we all have, plenty of information to suggest that was not a suicide. In fact, Ghislaine firmly believes that and has stated that, and it's one of the things she and I agree on.
Yeah.
So at that point, I went to and bear in mind, like, this happening was this huge, like, bombshell for me and many of the other survivors. Suddenly, this perpetrator that we'd lived in fear of for so many years was gone. And so it's this inner conflict of like, okay, I was terrified and now there's kind of less fear, but there's no opportunity to have that reconciled, that situation. So then there was the dismissal hearing, because you cannot charge a dead man. So Judge Berman had a dismissal hearing, and we were invited to come and speak. And this was pretty incredible on the part of Judge Berman. So I decided to go. There was almost no notice. It's like, do you want to come tomorrow to go do this? Okay, do I? I don't know, So I went and I flew in, and then, we had a wall of press, no cameras, but a wall of press in the courtroom. And we had about 23 survivors, and we stood arm in arm in front, Epstein's attorneys in front, Judge Berman and all the press. And we were given this opportunity to speak our experience or say anything we wanted to say.
I would like to shed some light on a question that gets asked quite a bit in regard to what appears to be an orchestrated cover-up of the Epstein files, right? So, the Trump administration seems to be kind of, digging itself into a deeper hole, making it appear clearer and clearer that they do not want the release of these files. And so, would you argue that some of the powerful people that would be implicated as a result of the release of these files really fall all across the political aisle, left, right, conservative, Republican? I want to know, because an argument that you often hear from the right, individuals who want to defend Donald Trump, is, well, if Democrats had the dirt, they would definitely release the files. A common rebuttal to that, and it's a common rebuttal I use, is, well, I don't think that this is a partisan issue. I think there are powerful people from both sides of the aisle implicated. Can you confirm that?
I can say that I also believe that, and I also believe it's not exclusive to this country. We're talking about, both Jeffrey and Ghislaine made it their business to know the most important and influential people across the board, across the world.
Why do you think that is?
Because that's how you control everything.
Interesting, okay.
Yeah, interesting, yeah. So you go and testify with the women interlocking arms. Did any prosecutors from the government then come to you after that and go, okay, now we know?
Yes, so immediately after that. And of course, that was like this emotional kind of like deluge. And then I was asked, the FBI would like to have a few words with you. I go off, speak to the FBI for what seemed like hours, like at least 2 or 3 hours. And they, they asked me a bunch of rapid fire questions. I told them whatever I could, and they said at some point in that, if anybody else would be prosecuted, would you be willing to testify? I was like, yeah, okay, And little did I know that the following summer, I would get a call at 6 o'clock in the morning, and from my attorney saying, Ghislaine Maxwell has been arrested, and you're in the indictment. And I was like, what is that? What does that even mean? What does that mean from me? Because people often talk about like, oh, you were involved in this case. Like, this wasn't my case. This was a federal case. I was called as a witness. I was given no information, even about the evidence that they had on me. So the evidence they had, pictures of me.
Wow.
I wasn't shown those things.
So were you shown those things as soon as you got involved in the case? Like, did they present those images
Not until right before.
Interesting, wow.
So do they have video of you as well?
I don't know if they had video of me. They didn't show me video.
But they had pictures of you from inside the rooms. So like that means they have the pictures, they have the videos.
They have, to put together a federal case at this level. This isn't like, oh, some people said some stuff, so we decided to just like arrest people.
Yeah.
This is context, this is testimony, this is evidence. And it's not a little bit of evidence, it's lots and lots and lots of evidence.
So did you give them names other than Maxwell and Epstein?
Not of people. I was not trafficked to anybody outside of Jeffrey Epstein.
I see, okay.
But I gave them other names of other powerful people.
Interesting.
And you gave them powerful people that you had seen there, or that you knew from other girls had partaken?
Both.
I see, okay. And how close were you to the other survivors?
I wasn't close to any of the survivors until after the dismissal hearing.
Was there an effort at all by Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell or both to keep the various survivors kind of separate from one another so they don't communicate with each other or potentially work together to push for prosecution?
100%. I mean, if you look at any kind of grooming pedophile setup, the divide and rule is the way that you make sure that your operation can continue and does continue. And you also, as you know, in that scenario, you wouldn't know who you could trust. You wouldn't know if one of the other women who appeared to be a victim actually would turn, because the truth is, these people could make you do almost anything.
It's just absolutely terrifying. And so, you hear about these like wild parties that Epstein would have with, these young girls who would, be victimized by these powerful men. To your comfort level, I don't want to, make you think about things that are difficult to think about given what you went through, but can you describe what those scenes were like?
So I wasn't involved in any of these parties. But my understanding is, I mean, I know that like neither Jeffrey nor Ghislaine really liked alcohol or drugs. So when you describe it as like wild parties, it's more about he would have these very lavish parties and very sort of intimidating parties. And my understanding is at some of these parties, some of the girls were present, and then there was some kind of opportunity for the other people to have sexual experiences with these girls. And
were there drugs readily available or alcohol readily available for others, even though Epstein and Maxwell didn't partake in that particular type
Jeffrey
of party?
hated drugs.
Interesting, okay.
So obviously sort of, socially, alcohol, yes. He didn't drink. He didn't like anything to do with drugs. And he also wanted the girls to be fully present for the abuse.
Wow.
Oh, that's super interesting. Okay, so
that's so sick. I mean, it's sick to drug the whole thing is sick, but the fact that he like made it known that he wanted, these girls to be fully cognizant of what was happening is just, there's like something really twisted about that.
Yeah, so I don't know if you're allowed to talk about it, but in all those interactions over the 10 years, did you ever see Trump at any of these parties?
I didn't see Trump at any of the parties. I was introduced to Trump by Ghislaine Maxwell at a party in Manhattan when I was about 20 years old. And this is something that's been documented, in fact, by the Mirror, which ironically used to, well, or maybe not ironically, was owned by Robert Maxwell previously.
Right.
The Mirror wrote a story about Ghislaine introducing me to Trump at a New York Manhattan event. And the article describes incorrectly a bunch of things that happened subsequently. And I mean, for clarity, I'm interested in the truth. Whether or not the truth suits my narrative, I'm here for the truth.
Right.
And there was a lot of misinformation within that article. And in that situation, I was very much brought to Trump as some kind of offering by Ghislaine Maxwell, like setting up like a date, right? Trump did not behave in any way inappropriately with me.
Okay.
And that's the truth. That doesn't mean that there weren't other inappropriate things that were done, but that was my experience, right?
So you got the sense that you were given it as an offering, but Trump was at that point in time, for whatever reason, was not interested.
That's right.
Okay, how about Bill Clinton? Any interaction with him?
I didn't have interaction with him, but I did have on multiple occasions, I was told of that he was coming, whether it was that he's coming to Palm Beach or he's coming to stay at the island. In fact, when I was on the island, Jeffrey and Ghislaine both told me like, oh, you're staying in the room that Bill likes. So if he comes, you might have to move from that room because that's the room he likes.
No, well, at least they said move.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. The island, I've always been curious about that. Now, again, you're guessing here because you didn't have interactions with everyone involved, right? But like I thought, well, maybe you could go to his New York apartment, because you're in Manhattan, you had a business meeting or whatever. But going to the island feels like almost everyone who went there knew what was gonna happen. Do you think that assumption is correct or incorrect?
I think that assumption is correct. I also can tell you that because of the way that all the properties were decorated, all the pictures of young, naked women, and this was across the board. It didn't matter whether you were on the island or you were in Paris, there was this like in your face kind of exposure to basically artistic pedophilia. And so you couldn't be at any of these properties and you'd have to be walking around with your eyes closed to not know.
And to get on a plane to go to the island knowing this about Epstein, you know that you're very likely going to be offered a girl. Is that fair?
I mean, this is not my experience. This is a speculation, but I would say that, I stick to what I said. I don't think anybody could go to any of these properties and not have an understanding of what might be going on there.
So final question for me, you initially, I was watching an interview of you on BBC back in June, and initially you were not necessarily in favor of the release of the Epstein files, but you have changed your mind. So I wanted to kind of ask you, what made you change your mind and what are you hoping would be accomplished by the release of the Epstein files?
So it's not so much that I've changed my mind, it's just the differentiation between a list and the files. And I think, we have to keep coming back to that. Whereas, we want everything. And this bill that's been put forward by Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, this is everything.
Right.
Like, let's get it all out. Can we get it all out now? Can we stop messing around and get it all out?
I agree with you on that because just releasing a list of names doesn't really tell you anything.
No.
Right, but releasing the files would, that implies that it's gonna include evidence, it's gonna kind of put those names in a certain context that will help the public understand what was really going on.
Right,
yeah.
And now, after this meeting, the private meeting with Congress and then the press conference outside, we have this opportunity, this window of opportunity. And thank goodness for those, like the 3 Republican congresswomen who came forward. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene was amazing. Her coming out and supporting us like that, if anyone can redeem themselves, that's the way to do it.
I have to say, she has been incredibly good on both the Epstein files and also her quest to get foreign money out of our politics, which I think is incredibly important.
Right.
But you mentioned the other Republicans, but have you been approached by any Democratic lawmakers who are looking to help, who are looking for the release of the Epstein files as well? I
mean, I haven't been approached directly other than obviously like Ro Khanna, but certainly within the press conference, within the private meeting with Congress that we were able to do, every single member who was present was like, we are in this with you. Please hold us accountable. Please follow up. We want to support you. And so what we really need to do now is, because we need 3 more votes, right? And we're talking about the end of the month. So what we need to do is really bring out the support for these Republican congressmen and women. And because they are taking a big risk.
They are, yes.
I don't think they're taking a risk. I think they're taking a risk by not voting yes. Okay, if they vote no, that means they are betraying American women and siding with predators. There's no answers or buts.
I agree, but there's a divide in this country between ordinary people who want justice and the elite. And the elite very clearly are engaging in a cover-up of these Epstein files.
So that goes to my question. So right now, all the Democrats are on board for the vote to release the Epstein files. Now, I get it, the Democrats are not in charge, conveniently, right? But you've got these 4 congressmen that are Republicans that are, so you need 3 more Republicans, period, out of over 200 Republicans. So if 3 don't come forward, look, I'm not into this for the partisanship. And if you told me Bill Clinton did it, I believe it in a second, et cetera. We talked about both sides of the aisle, et cetera. But if Republicans don't come forward and they don't, at least 3 of them don't vote for you, aren't they betraying all the victims?
Oh, 100%. I mean, then they're not only betraying all the victims, they're betraying themselves, they're betraying their daughters, their wives, their, everybody, their mothers. I mean, this is a betrayal that goes beyond a bill. This is an ethical issue.
Absolutely.
And so if you don't come forward, it's not just the next 3 years. Hopefully these congressmen and women will have long lives and long political careers. So I would invite them to consider what might happen after this administration cycles out.
Yeah, and
I agree.
Look, they should affect their careers. It should affect their souls. They're literally protecting predators, and they can never explain why. They always hide behind you guys. They use you as human shields. Like, oh, we're trying to protect the victims.
Yeah.
That's a lie, isn't it?
It is 100% a lie. And you know what? The problem is now that we've come out and started speaking, we're not going away. And I can't speak for all the other survivors, but I can speak for myself. The more I am ignored, I will get louder and louder and louder.
Oh, you're my type of lady. You're my type of lady. I love it. Yes, I love it.
Last quick question. So Ghislaine Maxwell said, I don't think that he committed suicide, I think he was killed. And then curiously, they didn't ask her, who do you think killed him? I mean, what a strange omission, right? If someone told me, oh, Charles Manson was killed, Osama bin Laden was killed, first thing I'd ask is who killed him, right?
You're talking about when she was interviewed by Todd Blanche.
That's right.
So that was an interesting setup, right?
Yeah.
And the main thing, and we can I don't really have an opinion about Todd Blanche particularly, other than the fact that he doesn't have enough experience and history in this case to be qualified to be questioning her. So
it appeared to me that was all about getting some clarity, if you want to call it that, from Ghislaine Maxwell that Donald Trump didn't do anything bad. She gets rewarded with, Club Fed, with this fancier, nicer prison, which, by the way, I do want to ask you what you think about the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell was moved from, a more high security type prison, a prison where she belongs, if you ask me, to a more comfortable facility.
I'm horrified. So are most of the other survivors. I mean, it's a betrayal of everything that I did, everything I sacrificed to testify. The 30 years that I've lived with surviving this abuse. But really now we have to look forward to what can we do. We need to get this bill passed. One other thing that I think is important is, I think you have to think about, we all can see that this is political suicide for Trump to be
engaged in a cover-up,
to be vetoing or trying to pressure people to not vote for this bill and have these files released. So if that's what he's willing to do, why? Why? Right?
I mean, so that goes to who killed Epstein as well. Now we're in the guessing territory because you don't have personal experience, and neither do we. But so, I mean, I would, as powerful as those particular predators were, it's hard for me to imagine that they have enough power to kill someone inside a US prison and get away with it, right?
Really?
But an intelligence agency would have enough power to kill someone inside a US prison and get away with it. So that's me guessing. Do you have a guess?
I don't really have a guess. I have questions. I have questions. I can see that. My main question is, if the fear is not political suicide, what's worse than that? And who is, and everyone seems to think that, Trump is maybe controlling Ghislaine and manipulating this.
No, I think it's
probably the other way around.
Yeah, I do. In fact, ever since Ghislaine was moved to that more comfortable facility, I noticed that the Epstein leaks stopped. That's notable. I mean, I could be proven wrong. There could be more leaks soon, who knows? But I have noticed that those leaks stopped after she was moved to
Leaks about Trump.
Leaks about Trump specifically, yes.
Yeah, interesting. I suppose intelligence agencies could do leaks, and they could decide to stop doing leaks if one of their assets got favorable treatment. But
I mean, I knew Trump a little. I know Ghislaine really, really well, and she is extremely smart.
She is, and very manipulative.
Yes, and she would not leave this to chance, and there is a reason that she is doing well and Epstein is not.
That's amazing.
Interesting, yeah. And of course, she had a powerful father too, who wrote about you in the Daily Mirror, who was a legendary Israeli spy, stole America's nuclear secrets, but yet was allowed to own newspapers and publishing companies in Britain, in the US. Things that make you go, that is super strange that a super spy for Israel is allowed to own all those things in the UK and the US.
Publishing houses that published our history books, our social studies books in public schools. Anyway, we're now well down that rabbit hole. But Anushka, unfortunately, we're out of time. I want to thank you for speaking with us, but more importantly, I want to thank you for being willing to, for lack of a better phrase, put your ass on the line to ensure that there's justice for the survivors. I want justice for the survivors. I think the majority of the American people want justice for the survivors. And to your point, Cenk, this is not a partisan issue. There are Republican voters who are demanding the release of the Epstein files, Democratic voters who want it. The real question is, do the people in positions of power who actually have the ability to make a difference here, are they gonna do the right thing? And I guess we're gonna have to wait and see.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the support we need is to reach out to these congresswomen, these Republican congresswomen, let them know that we're supporting them. Let them know they're doing the right thing. They're on the right side of history. Because if we support them enough, I think they'll have the courage to do the right thing.
I agree.
I think politicians on both sides, whenever they've been in charge, have been abysmal and have betrayed you and the American people. But the voters on both sides have been terrific. And so Republican voters who've asked for accountability on this over and over again, you're absolutely right. This is your time. Call your congressman, your congresswoman, and say, why are you on the side of the predators instead of the victims? And that is a super fair question to ask your representative. They're supposed to represent you, not foreign countries, not intelligence agencies, and not predators.
All right, Anushka, thank you again.
Thank you, Anna, thank you, Cenk.